timing really is everything, and it definitely applies to buying comic books because sometimes the comics you buy just don't age very well. All right, I have an unboxing video for you today, and this is an order I placed with Mile High Comics, and I was getting caught up in the Book of Boba Fett on Disney Plus, and was just on the hunt for some books, and I'd been looking for certain books for quite some time in preparation, and hearing some of the rumors of characters that were scheduled to appear in the show, and I felt kind of I felt the pressure. Honestly, I felt the pressure of like this is my last chance to get some of these books. There are other YouTube channels and influencers and speculators that I listen to, and one of the things that they often talk about is if you don't buy this comic now, then one of two things will happen, or both maybe, which is you'll never be able to find it again, or it will never be priced this low ever again. And I've heard this over the years where if you're going to go ahead and splurge and buy a key book and it costs $100, $1,000, it doesn't really matter what the cost is, but they will tell you that there's no better time than right now to buy this particular book because it's only going to rise in value, and the value and that the value, the price, the cost, it's never going to come back to where it is right in this moment. I don't know if I disagree with that or agree completely. Like I feel like that has to be part of your formula. Sometimes I react in that way. And when we go through this order that I placed with Mile High, you'll see a book in there where I ended up paying for it because I got nervous and I got scared, and I bought it because I felt like if this particular character was going to show up in this show, that the hype was going to be real and the books were going to take off in value and never come back. So let me unbox the order and we'll go through the comics, maybe even grade some of them, and then we'll analyze the order and see if that thought process or that statement or that directive from the community really holds up, which is if you don't buy the book now, you'll never be able to get it again at this price. So let's unpack this order and see what's inside, and then talk about the numbers after we look at the books. Okay, here is that order from Mile High Comics. It was shipped February 4th. And again, it sat in my comic cave ready to be open for about a month or a few weeks anyway. And I knew I had a particular book in here, but wasn't super anxious to open it up because I saw what was happening in the Book of Boba Fett Disney Plus show. And I'll get into that a little bit once we get to the book. So let's get through this. We'll get the comics out of the envelope and unboxed. All right, I'm getting pretty good at unboxing these Mile High orders. You notice it came in a FedEx envelope. I always choose FedEx on checkout. Make sure you unlock the free shipping, use the coupon code, and then always select FedEx. It defaults to USPS. I don't trust USPS with my comics and prefer FedEx. And so far, so good. All of my FedEx orders have come in with no damage. All right, so this was not just an order of comics about the Book of Boba Fett. What I typically do is, and I promise I'll show the books here in a second. What I typically do is I find a book or two that I want to kind of surround the order or build the order around. So what I'll do is I'll certainly go ahead and grab a couple of those books that I'm targeting, and then open up my acquisition analysis spreadsheet to see what other books are prioritized in terms of what books I should buy that have great current value and then a lot of potential value depending on the grade. Because the way that I look at this is it is basically a condition mystery box, and you're paying a little bit of a premium just like you would on any mystery box. So like if you're going to pay extra, like you're going to buy a $250 mystery box because there's a potential prize of $1,000, you're paying a premium on that mystery box. Then you open it and you have about $40 worth of comics. It kind of works the same way with the condition mystery box with Mile High. You're going to pay a premium for the chance to get high grade books. Sometimes they come in high grade, sometimes they don't. But on average, I think the Mile High books are somewhere around a 9.2 or a 9.3. They used to be closer to 9.4, but there's still a good chance of these books being 9.6 and 9.8. So let's get to the comics. And the first one is Amazing Spider-Man 359. These I pick up for the great Mark Bagley art, but also this is right around Cletus Cassidy, Carnage cameos, and it's building up to ASM 361 and all of the Carnage and Venom appearances that are just about to happen. So I grab these often and pick them up because of those, just kind of the build up to Carnage. So let's take some of these out and look at the condition here. So this one has a little bit of a roll right here around the staple. You can see there some spine ticks. And again, these were all purchased from Mile High Comics, and they were listed as NM near mint or N apostrophe mint. So there's definitely like a spine push right in there that's happening up and down the book, and that would need to be pressed out. Unfortunately, these two are eyesores and color breaking. On the back, it's probably worth a wipe down, but it's not too bad in terms of the cleanliness. A little bit of a kind of a manufacturing crease up and down here as I move it back and forth in light. Another little tiny crease in here. So there's some light creasing on the back, but not bad. And then for the spine, right in here, we just have a handful of those really, really thin spine ticks. They could come out with a press if need be. So I'm looking at probably a 9.2 on this one. I just found a third spine tick right in there. Probably a 9.2. The corners are all right. It's soft, but again, it's not going to take it down to a 9. And that corner's in good shape there. All the other corners look all right. So probably going to give this one a 9.2. I don't know if I would press this one, so I'm not going to put the pressing indicator and just leave it as a 9.2. And I've changed that from the way that I used to add these to my catalog, my personal collection. I used to say if there was any pressing improvement, I would indicate that it could be pressed. But I no longer do that because a book like that, I could probably maybe buff it up to a 9.4 if I'm lucky. And that's it. It's really not going any further than that because of the color breaks. Okay, so a 9.2 on that one. And again, I'll go over the cost and the value of all of these, what I paid for these right after I unbox and grade these. So there's that one. All right, the next one, Iron Man 170. And this is the first James Rhodes as Iron Man. So this was right in my wheelhouse of the beginnings of my Iron Man collecting career. And let's take a look at this. Written by Denny O'Neil. Pages are a little on the yellow side. So I don't think this one's getting a white page designation, but looks pretty good. Again, it's just slightly dirty, but it's not too bad. But it's definitely dull. It's kind of yellowish a little bit, but right in here in the spine, there's just a touch of dirt. The spine looks pretty clean. There's one issue here. Trying to get it in focus right there. And there's starts to this sort of spine push becomes a crease as the book moves up here towards the top as the spine moves up. On the front, though, it looks really, really nice. I'm looking as closely as I can before I call it, but the spine in the corners on this one, it's about as good as you're ever going to see. Look at that. Nothing. Not a single tick. Corners are super sharp. There's nothing on the front. I mean, if I were just looking at this book, if I held this book up to you on one of those online internet live sales where they say, look, this book is 9.8, and they just kind of go like that, they don't really talk about the grade, you'd believe it's 9.8. The only other thing I see, unfortunately, right smack in the yellow of his armor is something, either color rub or dirt, and my goodness, I'm not sure how I would handle that. The trouble is it's coming in through the ad, so it's kind of hard to show here, but behind the cover, whatever is directly behind, like right here, this corner and the boy's hair is showing through in the ad, sort of. So I don't even know if that could come off or not. I'd probably give it just a gentle wipe down just to see if there's anything that could come up there. But unfortunately, that being an eyesore too, right on the front, and it sort of disappears depending on how you angle it and hold it. So that's unfortunate. But boy, the condition of the book from a structural standpoint is solid. The wrapping is great. Staples are in the right place, but definitely needs a clean and press. But I would give it a 9.4, honestly. It's so good, and as I hold it, it's starting to fold up and down, back and forth, so I don't want to pick up the book any longer. So I'm going to mark it as a 9.4 clean and press candidate. So like I said, what that tells me is certainly it's worthy of an upgrade, or it has the potential of being an upgrade, I should say, and it's worthy of my time. So I could get in there and try a couple of techniques, at least kind of buff out that crease on the back, and then you'd get dinged on the very, very light surface dirt on the back. Again, that also could be cleaned up. So I'm going to give that one a 9.4, not too bad. So impressed with the spine and the corners on the front of the book. I mean, that was gorgeous. Love that book. Okay. So those are the kind of books that I'll add around the book that I targeted, and I want to make sure that, yeah, those two are last. Okay. Here is ASM Amazing Spider-Man 278. It feels like for about 4 years of Amazing Spider-Man, the Hobgoblin identity it was always such a big tease of who Hobgoblin was and whether or not he was alive, he was dead. And so this is right in that particular era, 278. Now, at first glance, again, there's a little bit of there's just a spot of ink there that, again, I could come out. I'm not exactly sure. And there is some creasing right in there in Hobgoblin's cape. So I'm already thinking it's not going to grade well without a press. And there's just some hidden spine issues in the white that are hard to pick up here. But let me show you. There is a spine crease, but right up and down the spine, hard to tell, but there's 3 or 4 spine ticks. also down here. So this one, pressing has to be in the mix. Again, a little bit of some ink stains right there under the S. Let's look at the back. Back looks really clean. So this one's tough too because there's a handful of spine issues right here. Again, right there on the white border, tough to see. But the colors look great. It's definitely white pages. Absolutely. So that looks good. It needs to be pressed. I don't know what to do about the ink spots. But that sort of color rub, again, it's just going to prevent it possibly, along with the creasing. Again, this one's that crease actually is even worse the second time I look at it right there. There's a dimple right in the book. This one feels like a 9.2. I don't know how else to describe it now that there's no color breaks per se, but there's 3 spine ticks just like the first book that we looked at. The ASM 359. It's on a white cover. So I feel like just to be consistent, I'm going to give it a 9.2. This one I feel like could be pressed. So this one's worthy of my time to look at that. So I will mark it a 9.2. And man, I feel like I have to, I don't know if I can get the ink stains out of there or not. I'm going to try, so I would put CP on it for clean and press, just to kind of remind myself to take a look at it. The tough part is trying to get a little bit of an ink stain out. And then also right here, I noticed too, there's a bit of a chip, right? Well, is that a chip or is that art? I'd have to look at the photo, actually. It could just be the head coming around. In any case, you'd have to figure out, could you get that little bit of an ink problem off without ripping the gloss off of the cover? And it may not be the case, but I feel like the work that I could do on that book would at least probably get it up to a 9.6. So if it's a pristine book with just that one little ink stain on the front, I think that's a 9.6. But yeah, that's unfortunate. And that happens with the all-white cover. You're bound to get some little color rub on it somewhere. All right, continuing my quest for Watchmen 1 through 12 in high grade. Here is Watchmen 6. So let's see what condition this is in. Not bad. First thing I noticed right up there, there's a notch right on the front. Usually that's caused by a finger pushing on the book or grabbing it in some way. There's a little bit of a scratch here as well. Something happening in the M right in there. Almost makes like an L. You can kind of see it. There's a scratch. Corner looks a little soft. May not pass for acceptable right there. I don't know what to make of this one. This one's close. Yeah, that corner too. That's rough. Right there, there's like a little bit of an impact crunch right on the bottom corner. So this is now lots of fingerprints too, just all over the back. Could have been mine just now. I was not eating Cool Ranch Doritos, but there are some fingerprints. I don't see any real, it just like a light scuffing and scratching. This one's tough. This one has a lot of stuff happening to it. I feel like this is probably, and then the more I look, the more I see right in there as well. There's a corner problem. I don't know if I would sink it down under a 9, but I think I have to just because it's tough. There really aren't any spine issues that I can see, but there's just so many little scuffs right in there, color rubs, fingerprints. There's just too many issues there. But from a spine and structural standpoint, it looks really good here, just above the Watchmen trade. So I think in that regard, I don't think it's an 8, but I do believe it's an 8.5. And if you disagree with any of these grades, please let me know. Let me know what you think. Am I undergrading? Did I miss something? I do like seeing those notes in the comments. CGC is not going to give us grader notes, so we have to give grading notes to each other. And there's just too many little problems with that one. And the Mile High range for near mint is 8.5 to 10. So an 8.5 is not something that you can complain about. It is expected that you could get near mint books in 8.5. This is my first copy of Watchmen 6, loose like that. So I'm getting close to completing that run, except for issue number 1. Now, to the book that gave me whatever pressure, stress, FOMO, whatever you want to call it, we're going to get into that book. And I ended up buying 2 copies, and I actually ordered 3, and they only fulfilled 2, and charged me only for 2. So let me just show you the book, and then we're going to grade each one. This is Darth Maul number 3. And if you enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett on Disney Plus, like I did, you will notice right there that is Cad Bane, and this is his first cover appearance on a comic. So when he first showed up in Book of Boba Fett, the internet went wild. At least the Star Wars side of the internet went crazy. Whether or not he was blue enough, or his hat was big enough, I don't know. If they made him look just like the Clone Wars, I think he would have looked extra goofy. I thought he looked pretty sick. So it is what it is. But I FOMO'd all over this. I had been looking for this book and Darth Maul number 2 for a long time. I found them. They were expensive. They were on eBay. I didn't trust the grades and so on. I didn't want to pay for a slab, and I waited and I waited. And I watched the show that morning that he appeared, and I went on Mile High. I knew these books were there. I knew they were there. I just didn't want to buy them. And I bought 3 copies, or at least ordered 3, and then ended up paying and buying for 2. Okay, so let's look at the condition. I was kind of cheating and glancing at this as I was talking, and the front looks really, really nice. You can see there's no creasing, no nothing. The spine looks perfectly intact. That corner looks pretty good. I don't see any problems there. This is usually when I start to sweat, because I see something like this. But then you always have to turn the book over to look for certain issues. And right here, bam, right there is just that tiny bit of a fold. It breaks color like hairline. If you zoom way back, you certainly see the fold in the light, but you don't see the color break. But that's it. There's a slight crease right in there, but not bad. So would I press this book? Yeah, probably. There's a little bit of slight creasing around that staple. It looks really nice. So there's part of me that wants to say it's good enough as is, but I'm going to give it a 9.6 with an indication that it can be pressed. That one's borderline for me. I really feel like that one could be a 9.8. And because I spent the money, regardless of how much it's worth to you or to me, but I'm going to put it in the full back. And the full back is a thicker board. Some people, they just put 2 backing boards in a bag. But the sort of perfectionists or OCD, or whatever you want to call it in me, the comic book collector wants to be consistent, and I use the fullback single board, and I pay for these. These have really become expensive. Used to get them for about 50 cents a piece, and now they're up over $1 each. So, but it gives it such a rigid backbone. And I buy the Silver Age so that it presents and gives it that nice white border. So I have to do it. I keep buying them. I save up and I buy the fullbacks because I'm investing in these books and I want them to not get beat up in the bins. Okay, so that's book 1 of 2 of Darth Maul number 3. And let's look at the other one. Okay. So first impression again, looks very, very nice. Looks very sharp. Just kind of going over from corner to corner. Not bad. Just a slight, tiny hairline spine issue right there. It also disappears in the yellow and the white. There's actually one here and one right there. But again, I'm teetering on 9.8 until I see that right there, right above the RS in Star Wars. Now I have to look really close to see if it breaks color. It's hard to tell. It looks like it might or it might not. It's really difficult to tell. It definitely needs to be pressed out. Absolutely. So now we're in 9.6. Is it going to fall below? We're in the 9.6 to 9.4 territory. This one has multiple ticks on the back. One there, one there. Maybe just those two. I don't see... Rest of the book looks pretty good. You see any others that I missed? I don't see any dimpling or anything. So now it just becomes a question of... I think that, gosh, that... And again, that's from somebody pushing the book in. And let's open it too. It doesn't break color. It's almost like a reflection where it looks like it's color, but it's going through a few pages. Where is Cad Bane in this? There he is. Yeah. He looks just like he did in Book of Boba Fett. Well, maybe not. Anyway, we got to get to the order analysis here. So what do you think? 9.2, 9.4, 9.6? It's not a 9.8. I know that. But because this goes through multiple pages and is in need of a press, plus the two things on the back, that whatever they are, folds, creases into the spine. They're not color breaking, but a nice press would smooth that out. I'm going to go with a 9.4 on that one. That top part is such an eyesore. I mean, if I saw it at a show or an LCS and somebody said that's a 9.8, I wouldn't buy it just because of the reduction in presentation quality, honestly. And I know you're not supposed to necessarily ding the book for that, but it is borderline color breaking, where you're almost taking like a dime, and or thumbnail, fingernail, and it's just like maybe a quarter of that thumbnail or fingernail that's just kind of dug into the top of that book. But there aren't any color breaks anywhere. There's just a few pressable defects that should be able to get out there. Okay, so let me get this in the bag and board. And those are all the books in this order. And then I will plug in the grades and then let's see what the numbers tell us to see if this was still a worthwhile purchase, even though, spoilers, we kind of know at least visually and literally what happened to Cad Bane at the end of the show. Will we ever see him again? I think so. I think he's too cool. I think that Disney is not going to put away a character for good. I think they're always going to go back and use them in any timeline, prequel, sequel, whatever, flashback, you name it. So I think we might see him again. But he was great in the show, and I wanted to grab these copies. So let's look at the numbers. I'll show you what I paid for them, and let's see if this was a worthwhile purchase. Okay, so here is the order I placed. It was placed on February 2nd, 2022. The total cost of the order was $187.20. I had to pay $6 insurance, which I don't mind paying to insure the order. And you can see the very, very high and scary prices for these books. But then with a 60% discount, still scary and high, but not as scary. So if we compare these to the total cost of each book, which right here in column Z, this is with that $6 of insurance spread out across the 6 books. We can see my total cost. So for those Star Wars 3s, $65 each. And the current raw fair market value is $48.08. So a pretty steep decline. I don't remember what it was when I bought it, but I do feel like it was higher than $48, which in my mind justified my purchase at the time. However, I do say that Mile High is not a place to buy books to flip raw, unless you can find a book that is somehow mispriced, and or maybe there's a big speculator push that's incoming, and you go to Mile High and you grab them beforehand. But I don't have access to those super secret cabals and Facebook groups, so I just have to kind of go with the values that are currently in the market today versus what the pricing database at Mile High is, and I run the comparisons that way. Okay, so did any of them? They were all no. Here we go. Spider-Man 359. This was a win. It was a total cost of $13 for that book, and it has a raw fair market value of $26.50. So I about doubled my money with that one from a raw value perspective. Again, I wouldn't suggest flipping it to just to get 13 bucks out of the one book. I'll show you why I buy the books and why I pay the money from Mile High here in a moment. So overall, a negative outcome from a raw book perspective. So if you're just looking at this, what does all this mean? It means I overpaid. I overpaid for the books. Maybe not at the precise time I paid for them, but overall, since February 2nd, the value has come down where I've basically assumed a loss of almost $33. Now let's plug in the grades here, and real quick, I'll show you kind of what my minimum expectation is here, and then what the ceiling is. So in a 9.4, and let's bring in the CGC profit value column. So if all of these books got a 9.4 and I sent them off to CGC, and yes, they confirmed the 9.4 grade, it's about a $100 profit if I were to get all of these books slabbed and turned around. The big winner here at a 9.4 is that Iron Man 170, where it cost me $16.20 and it has a $95 value in a 9.4. Now in a 9.6, we move up to almost 200 at 191. Not as significant a jump as you might expect. The Darth Maul books start to pick up. They're over 100 at 125 each. But now, what is that ceiling? What is that maximum in terms of the range that I'm looking for? So if they all hit a 9.8, $1,144.45 of potential profit or value that you could add to your collection if all of these books hit a 9.8. Now, I always say that's not realistic, but again, I'm looking for the high to low. So $100 to $1,000. Somewhere in there is going to be my value that I add if I assume that my grading is accurate. And that's, again, it kind of is my trigger. And it's like, okay, so if you're telling me that if you spend $187 and you stand to get your 187 back plus somewhere from 100 to 1,000, if you're just telling an average person, maybe even somebody that doesn't deal with comic books, would you do that? They'd probably say, well, how sure of a thing is it? And if you're like, well, I trust my grading skills, so yeah, it's a pretty sure thing, then this would be the case. Now, the other thing that I've been thinking about is timing, right? And I was looking at, I was watching a video by Collector's Auctions, which is a great channel. He does CGC submissions. He talks about books, and I swear he's coming over in the middle of the night and grabbing some of the books out of my collection and sending them off to CGC, because we're pretty much kind of in the same era, have very similar interests. But anyway, he was talking about timing. He was opening up a box of graded books that I believe he sent away 6, 7, maybe even 8 months ago. And I love the books that he got, but I definitely understand when he was opening the books that maybe a little bit of the air came out of the balloon of the, like, being excited for the books. And this has happened to me plenty of times where I look at a book and I send it off to CGC and I get it back and I'm like, what was I thinking? But then sometimes, like this book right here behind me, this with the first appearance of the Inquisitor that is supposed to show up in Obi-Wan Kenobi. then I think like, well, what was I thinking sending that book in? And then I got it back and was like, well, by the time I got it back, there was some speculation on the book and it increased in value. So it kind of works both ways. But the point is still, or the theme is timing. So if I were to send the books off right now in their current state, in their current grade, and they go off to CGC, obviously by the time I get them back, the values are going to be different. So you have to also figure out or tell you ask yourself, what do you think is going to happen to this book? So for example, if Iron Man 170, and let me go back and see what grades I assign these books. So if I take Iron Man 170 here, there it is, and I give it a 9.4, do I believe that 6 months from now a 9.4 will still be about $95 for that one? Probably. I don't think Armor Wars is going to be released before then. How about a year from now, 2 years from now? I think that that book has some room to grow. I could see it maybe doubling or being about a $150 book a year from now. Again, depending on the James Rhodes character, how much of an impact is he going to have in the MCU, Armor Wars, and so forth. Do I believe it's going to drop below 95? No, I think it's a significant book in Iron Man comics. So you have to kind of think about that too. Now, the Darth Maul books, do I think that this could sink further? Yes. Yes, I do. I believe, well, especially because I have two copies. Once I've got them, you know that there's only one direction these books are going to go, and that's down. But in all seriousness, do I believe that these are going to tank, like go to nothing and be worthless? No, that it's still Darth Maul and Cad Bane are still very, very significant and important, and I think Disney's going to do everything they possibly can with these characters. But do I think that the book is going to go up even more and just keep? I mean, the trajectory that it was on, that's over. It's now on the way down. So let me plug in the grades for the rest of these and finish this up. We've got a 9.2 for ASM 359, and you can watch the grades pop in while I fill in my actual grades. ASM 278, 9.2. Watchmen 6, 8.5. That was a bummer. So you can see too here in column S the average grade of the order. So it's dipping down to a 9, but this will help. The two Darth Maul books, we had a 9.4 and a 9.6 on that one. So let's plug those in, 9.4 and 9.6. There we go. So on average, 9.22 across the 6 books. None of them were a 9.8. They are press candidates, which I do mark these as press candidates. I don't know if I've ever shown this, but this is what I do because I do want to keep track of which books are pressing candidates and then also what type of press. So the Watchmen and what was the other one? The 9.2, the ASM, I'm not going to bother pressing. But the two Darth Maul books were press. So what I do is I come over here and there's a press status column. And I also keep track if I did sell the book. And this is all incorrect here, so let me delete that. So I indicate that this could be pressed. ASM 278 and 170, I say that those need a clean end press, so CP. And then what I do is I track the grade before, and then I look at 9.4, 9.6, and 9.8 GPA grades. So what this tells me is, what I do is I try and use this data to say, well, what books do I want to work on next? So if I've got a 9.4 that has a current CGC value of $118, but I see the potential, if it is pressed, to see if I can get it up to a 9.8 of $309. Then that would prioritize that book. What's interesting is that that Iron Man 170 in a 9.8 is currently 360. Again, very surprising. Like these are these sort of hidden values of these books where you're like, okay, here's a $95 9.4, but a 369.8, whereas the Darth Maul book was 118.94 and a 309.98. So a very, very significant jump here for the Iron Man 170. Anyway, I'm getting distracted now by all the numbers. The point is, what I do is I mark these, and then I use those markers along with the 9, 4, 9, 6, and 9, 8 scale to indicate whether or not it is a book worth pressing, and also let me work on the books that could potentially return more than little. So this Darth Maul, those two Darth Maul books are probably books that would be prioritized for me in terms of books I would want to work on. And then if they did turn out as a 9.8, then I would go ahead and send them in. So the sort of final, based on these specific grades, again, unpressed, unchanged, the final CGC profit or value, $94.45. So that's kind of right around that $100 that I was talking about, $100 value. The Watchmen 6 being 8.5 really is kind of pulling this down, that opportunity down. But that's it right there. That is the order. So yeah, again, back to timing, just one last point about timing. Timing really is everything. You know, when you're dealing with things like cryptocurrency and stock, you have these things immediately in your portfolio. And when you're investing in comic books and collectibles, especially through the mail and grading and all of this, there's so much time, the research time, the organization time, the grading time, the mailing time, the professional grading time, the pressing time, that by the time you actually get the book back in the condition you want, slabbed and everything, what is the value? What is your time worth? All of these things need to be factored in. So you want to make sure that you're not just kind of getting your money back or losing a few dollars here and there. You want to make sure that you're only really buying the books with the greatest potential, and you're wanting to make sure that the books that you're going to get back are not going to slip if they were there. Like, honestly, if I bought these books the day that Cad Bane appeared and I sent them like priority express out to CGC and I got them back, I wouldn't have gotten them back in time before the final episode, because after the final episode, that's when the book started to slip. So you have to ask yourself too, like, is this character going to be long lasting? Is this something? And Black Chrysanthemum was something that honestly I was sweating every episode. I was watching that, like, is he going to make it? He got beat up pretty bad, especially in the final episode. He kept taking a beating, and he ended up standing there at the very end. Now, I believed in that character more, I don't want to say for the long term, but at least showing it more because of the ties to both Obi-Wan Kenobi and Dr. Aphra. And so I felt like that was a more like long-term speculation and investment there. Cad Bane was one where I knew he was coming, so he was on my radar, but when I saw him on the screen, I reacted. And now I'm kind of paying for it, honestly, because I could get these books today for a lot less. So there's a lot of timing involved and a lot of things to think about when you're buying comics and when you're investing in them and when you choose to grade them, when you choose to sit on them and flip them and all of those things. Timing is really an interesting variable in this equation, but this is an example of one of those orders where I probably could have waited and saved a few bucks. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.